Something shifted in your field recently. You felt it. Maybe it was subtle. A dream that stayed with you longer than usual, a sudden knowing that appeared out of nowhere, a moment where everything went quiet and you just understood something you couldn't explain. Or maybe it was louder. Synchronicities piling up so fast you couldn't ignore them anymore. People from your past suddenly reappearing with messages, doors closing and opening in the same breath. Whether you've named it or not, you felt the assignment getting clearer. And here's what most people don't realize. The reason you're feeling this intensity right now in 2026 isn't random. The energy since late 2025 has been rewriting the contracts of those holding specific frequencies. Not everyone, not the masses scrolling through distractions, but you, the ones who've been doing the inner work, often in isolation, often without recognition, often wondering if any of it even matters. Your field has been preparing for this. Your nervous system has been upgrading for this. The moments you thought were breakdowns, they were recalibrations, the periods you felt nothing, integration phases, the times you wanted to give up, tests of your commitment to the frequency you agreed to hold. So let me show you something that changes everything about how you understand your purpose here. Most chosen ones misunderstand their mission because they're looking for external validation of internal work. They think the mission will look like something, a career, a platform, a title, a visible impact they can point to and say, "See, this is why I'm here." And while those things might come, they're not the mission, they're byproducts. The mission itself is happening at a level most people can't see and wouldn't understand if you tried to explain it, which is exactly why you've been told, through that inner knowing, through the repeated messages, through the energy itself, not to tell anyone about this, because the moment you speak it prematurely, you scatter the energy. You invite opinions from people whose fields aren't calibrated to hold what you're building. You open yourself to interference, not from evil forces or dark entities, but from well-meaning people who will project their limitations onto your path. Their doubts become energetic static in your field. Their fear masquerades as concern. Their confusion about their own purpose gets transferred onto yours. And suddenly you're defending something that doesn't need defense. You're explaining something that can't be explained. You're trying to make sense of a calling that operates beyond sense. Your mission operates simultaneously on 3 levels: personal, relational, and field. And you can't skip any layer. This is where most people get it wrong. They want to jump straight to the big impact, healing the collective, shifting the planet, anchoring the new earth. But if your personal frequency is still collapsing every time someone criticizes you, if your nervous system is still dysregulating every time you encounter chaos, if you're still seeking external permission to trust what you know, you're not ready for the relational or field work. Not because you're not worthy, because the structure isn't stable yet. So let's start with the first dimension, the personal frequency work. This isn't about perfection, it's about becoming an unshakable resonance that doesn't collapse under external chaos. Think of it like this. When you throw a stone into still water, ripples spread outward. But if the water is already turbulent, the stone barely makes an impact. Your personal frequency work is about becoming the still water, not because you avoid chaos, but because you've done enough internal clearing that external turbulence doesn't destabilize your core. Here's what this looks like practically. You're in a conversation with someone who's spiraling in anxiety, old version of you. You match their frequency, you try to fix them, you absorb their chaos and carry it home in your nervous system. New version of you, you stay present, you listen, you hold a steady frequency that gives them something to regulate toward. You don't take on their emotional state. You don't try to change it. You just remain coherent. That's the work, and most days nobody sees it. Nobody thanks you for it. Nobody knows you just held a frequency that prevented someone's spiral from getting worse. But the field knows, your mission knows, the universe responds to frequency, not effort. This is why your morning matters more than you think. The first hour after you wake up, before you check your phone, before you consume anyone else's energy, before you let the world tell you who to be today, that's when you set your resonance, not through elaborate rituals, not through hours of meditation, but through conscious coherence. Maybe it's 60 seconds of remembering who you actually are beneath the roles and masks. Maybe it's drinking water and feeling your body come online. Maybe it's stepping outside and letting your system calibrate to something larger than your thoughts. Whatever it is, it's not optional. It's foundational. Because if you start your day in reaction mode, checking messages, absorbing news, jumping into tasks, you're building on chaos. And chaos doesn't hold the frequency your mission requires. Now here's the part that might challenge you. The personal work never ends. There's no graduation point where you've cleared enough wounds or integrated enough shadow or embodied enough light. Because your capacity to hold frequency expands as the collective need for that frequency grows. You're not working toward a finish line. You're working toward greater capacity. The triggers that still activate you, they're showing you the next level of stability your field needs to anchor. The patterns that still trip you up, they're revealing where your frequency can become even more unshakable. This isn't failure, it's expansion. Let's move to the second dimension, the relational transmission. This is where it gets subtle. And this is where most people leak their energy without realizing it. Your mission in relationships isn't to heal anyone. It's not to wake anyone up. It's not to convince anyone of what you know or see or understand. Your mission is to be a stabilizing presence in specific relationships without fixing or saving anyone. Read that again. Stabilizing presence. Not healer, not teacher, not guru, not the one with all the answers, just stable. You know those people in your life who keep showing up? Not the whole world, not everyone you've ever met, but specific people who cycle back into your field, who ask you questions they don't ask others, who seem to settle when they're in your presence, even if the conversation is ordinary. Those are your assignments, not projects, not people to transform, but relationships where your coherent frequency creates a field they can regulate toward if they choose. And here's the critical part. If they don't choose, that's not your failure. Because the relational dimension of your mission isn't measured by how many people you impact. It's measured by how consistently you hold frequency regardless of whether anyone changes. You maintain your resonance in the relationship with your critical parent, not to change them, but because that dynamic is teaching you to stay centered in the presence of judgment. You remain steady with your chaotic friend, not to fix their life, but because that interaction is strengthening your ability to witness suffering without absorbing it. You keep your heart open with the family member who doesn't understand you, not to gain their approval, but because that relationship is refining your capacity to be yourself without external validation. Most of this work is invisible. You won't get credit for it. People might not even notice. They'll just feel something when they're around you. A settling, a safety, a permission to be themselves. And they won't know why. That's the transmission. That's the mission. And it only works if you're not trying to make it work. Here's where people mess this up. They turn their mission into a performance. They start monitoring whether their presence is having an effect. They look for signs that their frequency is shifting others. And the moment you do that, you've collapsed into ego. You've made it about you, and the transmission stops. Because real transmission happens when you're so rooted in your own coherence that you've forgotten to measure impact. You're just being what you are. And the field responds. Now the third dimension, the field anchoring. This is the work nobody sees. This is the reason you might not have a traditional career path or public platform or obvious contribution. Because your mission at the field level isn't about doing, it's about being. You are anchoring a specific frequency in collective spaces, and that anchoring is holding more than you realize. Think of the collective field like an ocean. Most people are caught in the currents, swept along by mass consciousness, fear, reactivity, chaos. Your job isn't to change the ocean, it's to be a stable point within it, a place where the frequency doesn't collapse, a point of coherence that the field can organize around. When you walk into a room and the energy shifts, that's field anchoring. When you're in a meeting and somehow the chaos settles without you saying anything, that's field anchoring. When you're just living your life, holding your frequency, and synchronicities start happening around you that benefit others, that's field anchoring. You don't have to understand how it works. You just have to stay coherent. Because the field responds to resonance, not intention. You can have the best intentions in the world, but if your nervous system is dysregulated, if your thoughts are chaotic, if your frequency is unstable, you're adding to the turbulence, not the coherence. This is why the personal work and relational work matter so much. They're building the stability required for field work. And here's what's happening in 2026 specifically. The collective field is going through an acceleration that's activating dormant aspects in those who agreed to hold frequency during this time. That's you. The timeline we're in right now carries a specific energetic signature that's different from previous years. It's not about the calendar, it's about planetary cycles, collective consciousness evolution, and the intersection of human readiness with cosmic timing. If you've been feeling an urgency you can't explain, a sense that something needs to shift now, that you can't wait anymore, that time is somehow different, you're feeling the acceleration. This is why things have been intensifying. Relationships ending suddenly, old patterns surfacing with force, dreams becoming more vivid, synchronicities increasing, physical symptoms without medical cause. Your field is upgrading to match the frequency this timeline requires. And not everyone you know is going through this at the same pace. Some people in your life will match your acceleration, others won't. And trying to bring them along, trying to explain what you're experiencing, trying to get them to see what you see, that's not your job. That's interference. Let me tell you why you must keep this private. When you speak about your mission before your field is stable enough to hold the frequency of it, you create energetic leaks. Every person you tell becomes a thread of attention going outward. Their thoughts about what you shared, their opinions about whether it's real, their doubts or projections, all of it creates feedback loops in your field. And suddenly you're managing other people's perceptions instead of deepening your own embodiment. The mission gets diluted, the clarity gets clouded, the energy that should be going toward the work gets scattered into defending, explaining, convincing. There's a difference between sharing your journey and announcing your mission. Sharing your journey, the struggles, the growth, the realizations that can build connection and offer value to others. But announcing your mission, declaring what you're here to do, what you've been chosen for, what your assignment is, that's different. That's premature disclosure, and it invites interference. Not everyone is meant to understand your path. Not everyone is calibrated to hold the frequency of what you're building. And that's not judgment, it's just resonance. You wouldn't expect someone who's never studied music to understand complex composition. You wouldn't expect someone who's never tasted salt to describe its flavor. In the same way, you can't expect someone who hasn't done the consciousness work, who hasn't faced their own shadows, who hasn't recalibrated their nervous system, to understand a mission that operates at frequencies they're not accessing yet. So you keep it private. You do the work quietly. You hold the frequency without announcement. You let your presence do the teaching, not your words. And when the time comes, if it comes, to speak about it, you won't have to wonder whether it's ready. You'll know, because it won't feel like sharing a secret. It'll feel like stating a simple truth. Now, how do you know you're on the right path? How do you distinguish guidance from distraction when the mission isn't visible and the work is mostly internal? The universe has been giving you breadcrumbs, not giant billboards, not obvious signs that everyone can see. Breadcrumbs, small confirmations that only you would recognize, a specific number sequence that keeps appearing, a phrase you've been thinking about showing up in a conversation with a stranger, a dream symbol that repeats, an animal that crosses your path at meaningful moments. These aren't coincidences, they're confirmation that your field is aligned. But here's the test. Real guidance moves you toward embodiment, not ego. If the signs you're receiving make you feel special in a way that separates you from others, be careful. That's ego wearing spiritual clothing. Real guidance makes you feel connected to something larger while simultaneously more responsible for your own frequency. It humbles you and empowers you at the same time. It doesn't make you better than anyone. It makes you more aware of the work. Real guidance also creates coherence in your AVU's system. When you're on the right path, even if it's difficult, even if it challenges you, there's a deep settling, a rightness, a sense of alignment that doesn't need external validation. But when you're in ego or distraction, even if things look good on the outside, there's internal friction, a knowing that something's off. Your body is the compass, your nervous system is the feedback mechanism. Learn to trust it. And here's the practical framework for actually living this. Structure your days around coherence, not productivity. Most people wake up and immediately start doing, checking messages, planning tasks, reacting to demands. But if your mission is about holding frequency, your days need to be designed differently, not rigidly, not with elaborate routines you can't maintain, but with intentional pockets of coherence. Start with the morning calibration we talked about earlier. That's non-negotiable. Then throughout your day, build in moments of recalibration. Not long, maybe 30 seconds. Just checking in with your field. Are you still centered or have you collapsed into someone else's energy? Are you still present or have you fragmented into worry about the past or future? Are you still coherent or has external chaos destabilized you? And when you notice you've drifted, which you will multiple times a day, you just return. No judgment, no story about failing, just return. Protect your energy like it's your most valuable resource, because it is. This doesn't mean isolating or avoiding the world. It means being strategic about what you consume and who you engage with. That news cycle designed to keep you anxious, you don't need it. Those social media feeds engineered to fragment your attention, not required. That person who only calls when they need something and leaves you depleted. Boundaries. You're not being cold, you're being responsible to your mission, because you can't hold frequency for the collective if you're constantly giving it away to things that don't align. Practice saying no without explanation. This is critical. When someone asks for your time, your energy, your attention, and it doesn't align with your mission, you can simply say no. Not no because I'm busy, not no because I have this other thing. Just no, or that doesn't work for me. Because the moment you start explaining, you're asking for permission, you're inviting debate, you're opening a negotiation about something that's not negotiable. Your frequency, your time, your energy, these are yours to steward, not selfishly, but responsibly. Build relationships with people who don't need you to dim your light. This might mean you have fewer close relationships than you used to. That's okay. Quality over quantity. You need people in your life who can meet you at your frequency, not people you have to shrink for. Not people who need you to stay small so they feel comfortable. Not people who only engage with the version of you that serves their needs. Real relationships are the ones that align with your mission. They celebrate your expansion. They challenge you to go deeper. They hold you accountable to your highest frequency without making you feel inadequate. And here's something nobody talks about. Sometimes the mission requires you to be alone more than you're comfortable with, because when you're holding a frequency that's not yet common in the collective, you won't find a lot of people who resonate at that level. And that's not a problem to solve. It's a temporary reality to accept. The loneliness you feel isn't evidence you're doing something wrong. It's evidence you're doing something most people aren't willing to do. You're choosing coherence over comfort, alignment over approval, mission over belonging. That loneliness will shift as your frequency stabilizes and you start magnetizing aligned connections. But in the meantime, learn to be comfortable in your own field. Learn to find fulfillment in the work itself, not in external recognition of the work. Learn to trust that the mission is unfolding exactly as it needs to, even when you can't see the evidence yet. Now let's address the shadow side of this, because there is one. Spiritual bypassing is real, and it's easy to fall into when you're focused on frequency and mission. You can't use your spiritual practice as a way to avoid dealing with practical reality. You still have to pay bills. You still have to have difficult conversations. You still have to address the parts of your life that aren't working. Holding frequency doesn't mean floating above human experience. It means being fully present within it while maintaining coherence. If you're using your mission as an excuse to avoid responsibility, that's not alignment, that's avoidance. If you're using your spiritual beliefs to justify treating people poorly, that's not awakening, that's ego. If you're so focused on your personal frequency that you've lost basic human compassion, you've missed the point. The mission isn't about transcending your humanity, it's about integrating your divinity with your humanity. Both. Always both. Also, be aware of the savior complex. The belief that you have to fix everyone, wake everyone up, heal the whole world. That's not your mission. That's ego pretending to be service. Your job is to hold your frequency and let that do the work. Some people will resonate with it, others won't, and both are perfect. You're not responsible for other people's awakening. You're responsible for your own coherence. So here's what your mission actually is. Underneath all the complexity, beneath all the layers, you're here to return to your original frequency, the one you came in with before the world conditioned it out of you, before you learned to shrink to fit into spaces that were too small, before you adopted beliefs that weren't yours, before you dimmed your knowing to make others comfortable. Your original frequency, that's the mission. Everything else, the relationships, the work, the impact, that all flows from that. And the returning isn't a one-time event. It's a constant choosing every day, multiple times a day. You're choosing to return to coherence or stay in chaos. To remember who you are or forget, to trust your knowing or doubt it, to hold your frequency or collapse. That's the work. That's the mission. And it's so simple, it's almost offensive, because we want the mission to be grand and complex and important looking, but it's just this: stay coherent, keep returning, hold the frequency, let that be enough. The world doesn't need you to be more than you are. It needs you to be fully what you are, your unfiltered frequency, your authentic resonance, your true self. Not performing, not pretending, not trying to be spiritual or enlightened or awakened. Just real, just present, just coherent. And when you do that, when you commit to this mission of becoming and maintaining your original frequency, something shifts in the field around you. People change in your presence without you trying to change them. Situations resolve without you forcing solutions. Opportunities appear that match your resonance, not because you're manifesting them, because you're finally broadcasting the signal you came here to broadcast, and the universe responds to frequency. This is your mission. Not out there, right here, not someday, right now, not when you're more ready or more healed or whatever. Now, with all your imperfections, with all your questions, with all your doubts, you're ready because you're here. You're qualified because you said yes before you even incarnated. You're capable because the mission chose you. You didn't choose it. So stop waiting for permission. Stop looking for external validation. Stop wondering if you're really chosen or if this is all just ego. deep down, beneath the doubt and fear and conditioning, you've always known. That knowing is the confirmation, that sense of assignment you can't shake. That's real. Trust it. And remember, you don't have to tell anyone about this. The mission doesn't need an audience. It needs your commitment, your coherence, your willingness to keep returning to your frequency no matter how many times you drift. That's it. That's everything. The universe is watching, not to judge whether you're good enough, but to see what you'll do with what you've been given. Will you honor the frequency you came to hold? Will you stay committed when nobody's watching and nothing's changing on the outside? Will you trust the mission even when the path isn't clear? That's the real test, and you're already passing it. Just by being here, by feeling this, by recognizing yourself in these words, you're already doing the work. Now just keep going, keep returning, keep holding. The rest will unfold exactly as it needs to. Your mission is active. It has been all along. Now you just know it consciously. Use that knowing wisely. Hold it privately. Let it guide you quietly. And trust that your frequency, steady, coherent, true, is doing more than you can see. That's enough. You're enough. The mission is happening. Stay the course.